This is the story of a church disruption that's raising questions about equal protection under the law. In mid-January 2026, an uninvited white evangelical street preacher stormed into Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Stonecrest, Georgia, disrupting a worship service with inflammatory rhetoric. Pastor Jamal Bryant is now demanding the man's arrest, pointing to a recent federal case in Minnesota where protesters who disrupted a different church service faced immediate criminal charges. The contrast between these two incidents has sparked a national conversation about how authorities respond when black churches are targeted. Understanding why this incident matters requires looking at what actually happened, who Jamal Bryant is, and why he believes religious institutions aren't being protected equally. January 13, 2026, a man walked into Birth Missionary Baptist Church in Stonecrest, Georgia, camera in hand and disruption on his mind. This wasn't some curious visitor wandering in by accident, and what happened next proved he came with a specific agenda. Weekend worship was underway when the man entered the sanctuary and started loudly denouncing the church and everyone in it. Witnesses and video evidence captured him shouting, "Jamal Bryant, you wicked dog," while telling congregants they were going to hell, and he didn't stop there. Accusations of moral corruption flew at Pastor Bryant directly. Former pastor Eddie Long got denounced, and Dr. Kari Turner Bryant, the pastor's wife, caught her share of rebukes too. Some accounts say the man even threw racism accusations at Bryant, which adds another layer to an already volatile situation. Video timestamps reveal something alarming. Nearly 5 minutes passed before security showed up and escorted the man off the property. Think about that for a second. A megachurch with roughly 10,000 members, trained security on staff, and someone shouting threats in the middle of worship gets almost 5 full minutes to do whatever he wants. Church member Alfreda Smith put it bluntly, "It's crazy, it took way too long, like I would be scared, anything could have popped off." Irvin Gray, another member, called for beefed-up security and suggested they should have a male right there at the door with the greeters. Nobody got hurt, which is the good news, and the service continued after the man left. What stayed with the congregation was the fear and the questions. Would this guy face charges? Would anyone in authority treat this seriously? February 4th, 2026, and still no arrests, still no confirmed identity of the intruder. Jamal Harrison Bryant's voice carries weight in religious and social justice circles, which is why this incident got national attention, and his background explains how he got that influence. Born May 21, 1971 in Boston, Massachusetts, Bryant's early years didn't exactly scream future megachurch pastor. 2 high schools kicked him out, Morehouse College admitted him with just a GED, but that's where everything shifted. Duke University came next, then Oxford, and suddenly the trajectory looked completely different. April 2000 marked the founding of Empowerment Temple African Methodist Episcopal Church in Baltimore, Maryland, where Bryant served for 18 years. Building a substantial congregation was one thing, but developing a reputation as a dynamic, progressive preacher willing to tackle controversial social issues set him apart from more traditional clergy. December 2018 brought what might be his biggest challenge: senior pastor of Birth Missionary Baptist Church. Located in Stonecrest, DeKalb County, Georgia, about 21 miles southeast of downtown Atlanta, this wasn't just another congregation: 10,000 members, a storied history, and expectations that would crush most people. Travelers Rest Baptist Church started in 1939 in Scottsdale, and what became New Birth grew exponentially under Bishop Eddie Long. When Long took over in 1987, membership stood at just 300. By 2010, more than 25,000 people called it home. The building, dedicated in 2001, holds a 6,056-seat auditorium, and Coretta Scott King's funeral in 2006 cemented the church's place in civil rights history. Eddie Long died from cancer in January 2017, and by then, membership had dropped back to around 10,000 following a 2010 scandal. 138 candidates competed for the senior pastor position. Bryant won. November 2024 brought marriage to Dr. Kari Turner Bryant, who now sits on New Birth's executive leadership team as both a doctor and pastor, and she'd later stir up her own share of controversy. Bryant never stayed in his lane as a pastor. Corporate accountability, social justice issues, political matters, he waded into all of it, which brings us to the campaign that's defined his recent ministry. February 2, 2025, Bryant announced a 40-day boycott of Target called Target Fast, initially set to run from March 3 to April 19 during Lent. What started as 40 days turned into something nobody expected. The demands were clear and specific: restore DEI principles, deposit $250 million into Black-owned banks, and honor a $2 billion commitment that was made after George Floyd's murder that was due in December 2025. Bryant's reasoning came down to pure economics. Black Americans spend roughly $12 million per day at Target, not monthly, not yearly, but every single day. Walk away with enough of those consumers and the company bleeds. The numbers showed he was right to bet on that strategy. 50,000 people signed on to the campaign at targetfast.org within 7 days. Reports eventually put the total commitments north of 150,000. Target's foot traffic dropped somewhere between 3.8 and 9.7%, depending on which analysis you read. Stock prices fell from $145 to $93 per share. $11 to $12 billion vanished from the company's valuation. Brian Cornell, the CEO, saw his salary slashed by 43%. Second quarter fiscal year 2025 brought net sales of $25.2 billion, down roughly 1% year over year. Bryant called it the most successful, effective, and long-standing boycott of Black people in 70 years, since the Montgomery bus boycott. And that comparison carries weight when you remember the Montgomery bus boycott lasted a year and a day. Easter Sunday, April 20, 2025, Bryant made the boycott indefinite. May 25th rolled around and he declared Target canceled. June 2025 brought something bigger. Brian Cornell announced his resignation as CEO. Michael Fidelki, Target's chief operating officer, got tapped to succeed him in February 2026. Bryant took credit for the boycott, pushing Cornell out. His philosophy came through clearly. America has shown us time and time again, if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. He added that not since the Montgomery bus boycott has Black America come together in such a unified vision, a unified focus, and a unified front. June 2025 saw some internal drama when Bryant accused 4 Black denominations of accepting a $300,000 donation from Target during the boycott. He figured Target was going around him to engage other Black church leaders directly. Ron Busby, president and CEO of the U.S. Black Chambers, partnered with Bryant to provide a directory of 300,000 Black-owned businesses so boycott participants had somewhere else to shop. Dollar General became the next target, with Bryant stating the company bowed to pressure from the Trump administration and rolled back their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. This background matters because it shows Bryant as someone who proved he can mobilize serious economic and social pressure against powerful institutions. When something happened at his church and authorities did nothing, he turned that same persistence and public platform on them. Days after New Birth incident, something happened 1,500 miles north that handed Bryant the perfect comparison. January 18, 2026, anti-ICE protesters disrupted a service at City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. David Easterwood serves as the church pastor and acting ICE field office director, making his church a natural target for activists opposing immigration enforcement. Chants of ICE out and justice for Renee Good filled the sanctuary, referencing Renee Good and Alex Preddy, both 37, who'd been shot and killed by federal immigration authorities. The federal response came swift and brutal. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi put out a statement: "We do not tolerate attacks on places of worship." Her social media post went harder: "Listen loud and clear, we do not tolerate attacks on places of worship." Charges hit 9 people, including journalist Don Lemon and Gira Fort, for conspiracy against rights of religious freedom and violations of the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act from 1994. January 30, 2026, Don Lemon got arrested. He maintained he was covering the protest as a journalist, not participating in it. A federal magistrate judge initially rejected the charges after finding no probable cause, which reportedly left Bondi enraged, but a grand jury returned an indictment anyway. Lemon walked on personal requisition bond while Chief U.S. District Judge Patrick Schiltz wrote that Lemon and his producer were not protesters at all. Bondi kept pushing. "You have the right to worship freely and safely, and if I haven't been clear already, if you violate that sacred right, we're coming after you." She added, "If you riot in a place of worship, we will find you." Bryant's argument hinges on this comparison, and it's hard to ignore. Minnesota saw protesters disrupt a church service, and 12 days later arrests happened, federal charges got filed, and the Attorney General went public declaring zero tolerance. New Birth saw a man storm a predominantly Black church, shout threats and denunciations for nearly 5 minutes while filming himself, and 3 weeks later, nothing. No arrests, no charges, no federal statements about protecting houses of worship. Bryant spelled it out. A white evangelical nationalist pastor had the audacity, he and his wife, to get out of his car for propaganda and disturbance, filmed themselves coming into our church using hate speech. And since you are against places of worship being disturbed, when is the arrest warrant? The question hits hard. Does religious freedom protection get applied equally, or do some churches count more when federal intervention time comes? Bryant's demand for equal protection doesn't exist in isolation. A deep, painful history of Black churches being targeted for violence in America gives his words extra weight. Everyone remembers the Mother Emanuel AME church massacre in Charleston, South Carolina, because it happened recently enough to still feel raw. June 17, 2015, Dylan Roof walked into Emanuel AME Church for Bible study. 21 years old, white supremacist, sitting through the whole session before opening fire. Founded in 1816, Mother Emanuel stands as the oldest AME church in the South. Burned down in 1822 after co-founder Den McVesey got suspected of plotting a slave rebellion. Black resistance and resilience run through every brick of that building. Roof fired 70 rounds. 9 people died, including Reverend Clemente Pinckney, who served as both state senator and senior pastor. All 10 victims were African Americans, targeted because Roof wanted to start a race war and picked the church specifically for its history and status. December 2016 brought Roof's conviction on 33 federal hate crime and murder charges.